Hi everyone, this is Meredith Root, and welcome to the Afternoon Snack Podcast, brought to you by Tactic Nutrition.
Hi, I'm Alex Parker, owner of Tactic Nutrition, former lawyer, CrossFit Games athlete, turned health and fitness geek.
I'm also into health and nutrition, a more recent CrossFit Games athlete, co-owner of Tactic Nutrition, and former engineer. We are here to have fun, engaging conversation about some of our favorite topics, including nutrition, health, coaching, motivation, and of course, CrossFit.
Our goal is to give you something to think and talk about and hopefully make you laugh along the way.
Hey. That was an interesting intro.
That was Ivy saying, I'm so glad you guys are home.
Yeah. She is. Look at her. I mean, she's like totally content.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't normally sit in laps like she's been. She's really happy we're back. Tired, man. Yesterday was long. Yesterday was a long day.
Yeah, we got up at 5 a.m. and...
I mean, like, got up. I don't know that we ever really went to sleep, but go on.
Okay, we were up at 5 a.m. and then we arrived back in our home at close to 8 p.m. Mountain Time. So that would have been 10 p.m. So that was like 17 hours of travel.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Worth it though. Like Canada has, if you're not familiar with the restrictions now, traveling back into Canada from international on airplanes, you have to quarantine for 3 days in a hotel, which means you're paying for 3 nights in a hotel and you have to stay in a hotel room for 3 days straight.
Where they bring you your food.
Yeah. So the other option is to cross the border by car or foot to avoid the 3-day quarantine in the hotel. And so then you just have to do the 14-day quarantine in your home, which you also have to do after the 3-day hotel quarantine. So we decided to fly into Montana, which is just south of where we live, about 5 hours south of where we live, and then cross the border by foot. And so we did that. So it just added a few additional hours to our trip.
We added like 5 hours.
Yeah, but it was definitely like worth it to be at home now with Ivy instead of being in a hotel for 3 days.
Yeah.
Eating, I don't know what kind of food they serve, but
and apparently there was like some sort of COVID outbreak in one of the quarantine hotels in the staff, which is hilarious.
Makes zero sense. Like you have to quarantine anyways for 14 days in your home. What is the 3-day quarantine? I feel like it's just a deterrent.
It's a deterrent. It's like, it's expensive. It's probably a money grab. It's just it's Canada being extra.
Yeah.
It's like, we're going to do what New Zealand does, except apparently 1/3 of the travelers flying back in are exempt. So people are like, it's not even working because they're exempting too many people from the quarantine.
Because they're considered essential.
Yeah, but what's considered essential sort of changes. It depends on the border patrol officer. Like, it's such a flawed system. And it's like, it's crazy because you compare like Canada to the US right now. And it was pretty weird being in the US and having it seem like, oh, they're doing a much better job, because for the past year, like, Canada's done a much better job controlling cases and outbreaks, and it's just the numbers have been lower here. And now because the vaccine rollout is just, it's so poor in Canada. Like you go to US, and because I was saying this for like 2 weeks about how much better it was, and it just doesn't make any sense. And then you come down and you're like, oh my God. Like, it feels like, and partially the weather was great, but also like, you can tell people are doing their part. Like, a lot of people are getting vaccinated. It feels like things are headed in a positive direction there. They're talking about lifting mask mandates. And then here it's just like doom and gloom, because there's no one's vaccinated. The cases are really high. The variant outbreaks are it's predominantly these new variants. People are getting really sick.
Yeah.
It was a nice trip. And bonus, we're both now fully vaccinated, which is great.
And on top of that bonus, neither one of us had symptoms from our vaccination.
Yeah, that was the crazy part. Because you got, Alex got the single shot J&J. When that came back on the market, you basically booked your flight. So she got that, which I'd heard was causing more, more severe side effects in people. You had nothing. And then a couple of days later, I got the second dose of Pfizer, which again, like I've heard so many stories of people just getting kind of sick with the second dose. Nothing. Like I woke up that night, so I got it like 5 p.m., 5:30. So I woke up that night and was like kind of hot. I was like, is this the side effect? Am I like sweating? Do I have a fever? But I think I was just hot. And then, yeah, I kept waiting for something to happen the next day and nothing happened. So definitely, I mean, like, I really sometimes like to feel superior. And there's nothing that makes you feel more superior than not having any physical side effects to a vaccine.
Especially like, I mean, we're pretty in the know on how people are responding to these things because so many of our clients have received both one or both vaccinations.
Yeah.
So we get a sense of how people are responding, and it seems like a pretty, I mean, some people it's like very, very sore arms. Some people are actually like feverish, puking. Some people just kind of have like flu-like symptoms for a day or two. And then, but yeah, there haven't been too many people that haven't had any symptoms. So I did feel a little bit superior.
Yeah. And like it at least allows you to enjoy your time, when you're away rather than having to, stay in bed for half the day or a whole day, which is what I'm hearing.
The one thing is like mine really hurt going in, but we figured it was because it was cold because it was like an outdoor drive-through vaccination.
I think they had it sitting in a cooler.
Yeah. Ow,
so it's like anytime you get a cold
it's
injection.
pretty achy, like instantly.
Mine felt like nothing. Like I watched her do it and it felt like there was nothing going into my arm. I was like, is there something in the syringe? I think you forgot to put the shit in the syringe. But yeah, then like that the next day my arm hurt a little, but not any worse than the first one. Yeah, it was weird. But I'm happy to have it. I don't obviously, like, I'm a big believer in science and pharmaceuticals, and it's sort of odd to me how people are with this vaccine. And
like, I think everyone should take it. But I'm not going to go out there and be like, everyone take the vaccine. Like, people can make their own decisions. And I posted that we were both vaccinated, and I was pretty stoked about that. And there's of course a couple people who get on my page and are commenting like, I'm pretty disappointed that you're using your platform to promote a vaccination that, hasn't even been FDA approved. And like, you don't know what the side effects are for pregnant women. And I'm like, look, dude, like, and then he was like, people need to do their own research. I'm like, exactly. Like, I can use my page for whatever I want. People are doing their own research. They can do their own research.
Yeah, but people also don't know how to do research. They're like, people think that they're doing research when they read their, friends' post on Facebook.
Or my Instagram post.
Yeah, or when they go on Savant's and they see what Savant's posting. Like, oh, did you see all this, like these side effects, like this and this? It's like, that's not research.
No.
It's not. Like, the people who are actually doing vaccine research are doing research. The people who are, like, there's still clinical trials going on. There's still enrollment. They're still evaluating. Like, they're doing research. Like, the Pfizer vaccine is about to get full FDA approval, and like, it's because that there's plenty of data. But there's also like, there's the shingles vaccine is FDA approved. Like, not everybody gets those vaccines. Like, just because something is FDA approved doesn't mean you have to get it. But like, at some point you should stop saying dumb shit about it. Like, at some point you can just say, look, like, I have allowed this vaccine to become politicized in my mind, and I feel so strongly about that I'm not going to get it. Like, just say what it is, and that's fine. But like, using bullshit, like, quote unquote science, or what your buddy says on Facebook as evidence that it's either not effective or not safe, like, that's just not true. Like, if you don't want to get it because you don't like what it stands for, then don't get it. But don't call it anything else, like anything other than that.
I'm at the point where with these people, believe what you want to believe. Seriously, like, everyone's entitled to their own beliefs. But like, on my page, I don't want people on my page who are undecided or uninformed coming on my page and seeing other comments like, oh, well, it's not FDA approved, and then being like, oh yeah, I'm not going to get the vaccine. Mm-hmm. Like, Alex got it, but this guy says I shouldn't, so I'm not. Like, I don't even want that in people's heads who aren't fully aware yet. But I'm also not interested in arguing with people like that. Like, you're not going to win that argument.
No, you can't.
Like, so I come on my page like a few minutes later, and there's many comments of people arguing about the vaccine. Mm-hmm. That's all stems from these like negative comments about it. Like, oh, well, there's so much unknown about the vaccine. I'm like, there's so much unknown about COVID. But what we know right now is that COVID is actually worse than the vaccine. That is what we know. But okay, like, don't trust science and trust this other virus that's like,
Well, that's the thing. Like people, they don't understand how the vaccine's designed, and like oh well, you don't. It's modifying your genetics.
you don't even know what's in it. It's like, yeah, you do.
You can go look on.
Anyways, so there's people like arguing with this guy, and I just go on and I'm like, you know what? Delete, block.
Sorry about it.
Thanks for like putting in the effort to like refute this guy's claims, but
yeah,
at the same time, like, you're not going to convince him. It's a losing battle here.
Yeah.
So I was just.
There's this whole argument. It's the article that I keep sending you that you keep not reading, but it's a Scientific American article that was written maybe back. It's been out for a while now. It was maybe in the fall or summer last year, and it's talks about this personality trait that exists, and the whole article is framed as like the personality trait that's ripping America apart. And now that we're 8 months since that article's been written, you see the same personality trait emerging in Canada.
You should post that article on our.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's the personality trait. It's one of the 5 kind of defined personality traits, and so it's there's the agreeableness, politeness side of things, and then there's the antagonistic. So these two kind of exist in like a balance. People who don't score high on patience and agreeableness tend to score high in antagonistic behavior. And so people who are agreeable and, polite tend to make decisions that, go with sort of societal norms. They consider how their decisions impact other people. So it's kind of like, the empaths are this way, people who make decisions based on the greater good, which I think I definitely fall into that. And then you have, antagonistic people who tend to not think that way. And they tend to be a little bit more difficult, aggressive. And sometimes you can get a person in power that's this way, like an antagonistic kind of character. And, they're questioning authority. And so the whole article was kind of how Trump empowered this personality trait, who's maybe typically not rewarded in society because people just don't put up with that. And so it was basically Trump combined with this kind of underlying populism movement. So populism is a political movement where kind of ordinary people feel like their needs and feelings are disregarded by the elite. So the elite can be politics or politicians. It can be, scientists. It can be anyone who's sort of a higher level intelligence or socioeconomic status. And so there's a fundamental belief there that no matter what these people say or do, they don't have the interests of the ordinary people at heart. And so now you have that movement combined with sort of antagonistic empowerment, and you have these people who just aggressively will literally believe anything other than like what comes out of the mouths of politicians or of scientists like Dr. Fauci and like Deborah Birx. And they'll literally like they'll just make shit up. And then we've talked about conspiracy theories before. And so you were talking about that podcast that you listened to where like people who adhere to like extreme beliefs or conspiracy theories, such as anti-vaccination people, it's an indication that they can't comprehend that there's a very complicated and multifaceted root cause to a problem. And so what they do instead is they look for the most simple explanation, even if that explanation is completely ludicrous. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene thinking that the Jews started the forest fires with a space laser, because that makes more sense to someone like her than like the complexities of climate change.
I mean, even on a more simplistic level, the flat earth argument, which to be honest, I know nothing about. I just know that people think the earth is flat. But
Don't Google that.
It makes perfect sense that somebody of a lower intelligence would be able, like, imagine space and planets and the atmosphere and all of that craziness. Like, it is crazy, but it's science. It's been researched, it's studied. Or you can look out your window and be like, I don't know.
Or it looks flat to me.
that's what I'm going to believe. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, I'm going to look with my eyeballs and see the earth flat. I'm going to look, I don't see a virus.
Yeah. But what I do see is all these politicians arguing. So you know what? I bet that there's something going on there.
Yeah. Anyways, if you're interested, there's a really good podcast. We'll put it in the show notes on conspiracy theories. It's actually a nutrition podcast.
Yeah.
But they have a guy on there who's an expert. He's a doctor, but he's an expert in conspiracy theories and how people kind of get sucked into these things. And then also how he basically says, he's like, you can't change these people's minds.
No.
Like they're so up on their high horse, which is actually not very high. And they get almost, you're empowering them by arguing with them about these points that they're.
Yeah, because they're just in there. They're not listening to what you're saying.
No, they actually, by arguing against them, you're helping them like justify. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. You're justifying their beliefs.
But I'll just say one thing about the podcast, which was super interesting, was they had done a study on conspiracy theories and theories that have no basis in science.
Such as anti-vaccination.
Anti-vaccinations and vaccinations causing autism. So they had a control group, which is just the regular population, like people like us,
General
I guess.
population, yeah.
And then they have doctors.
Well, hold on. I am not a regular person.
Anyways, I am. And I don't really know much about that, so I would consider myself a person who might be considered for the control group. And then you have doctors who are actually very well versed in vaccinations and
I think they had like autism, like people who work with autistic.
Yeah, very well read people in this area.
Experts. Subject matter experts.
Yeah, you should really be explaining the study.
That's okay.
You know the lingo. Anyways, and then you have people who believe and think that they know all of this stuff about autism and vaccines and how vaccines cause autism.
We'll call them fringe theorists.
Okay, so the results of this study, basically they had two tests. One was like, how much do you think you know about this subject? And how much do you actually know? No surprise, the people who thought that they knew the most were the conspiracy theorists.
Like more than the subject matter
More than
experts.
the actual experts they thought they knew. They thought they knew more than the experts. And they actually knew less than the control group.
General population.
They knew less like accurate information about this subject, than the control group.
Than people who claim to know nothing. Which is crazy.
So you have all these people walking around, and you could probably say, I mean, they didn't do the study on COVID vaccinations, but you can assume based on that like people who think that they know the most about COVID vaccinations actually know the least.
Yeah, and that extends to vaccinations in general. That probably extends to science because like clearly there's not a good understanding of the scientific method or how scientists think because they're like, well, hang on, how is it possible that the CDC and the WHO have reversed their stance on this in the last year? And it's like, because like that organization is full of scientists. And what do we know about scientists? It's the more that they learn, the more they develop their opinion. Like a scientist should be able to, when presented with evidence, say, oh, okay, I used to think this, now I think this. Like it's dynamic decision making. But people who are just that stupid and that simple are incapable of dynamic thought process. They're
You know what's weird is like all
all
these people who don't believe in science, whether or not they will admit to that, they all fly in airplanes. Airplanes are science. You're taking this humongous steel vehicle and putting it however many miles in the air, flying it however fast.
I think it's about 500 miles an hour usually.
They get in airplanes, but like in your mind, you can't fathom how that's even possible.
No.
Every time I take off in an airplane, I'm like, are we even going to get up there? Like, how? But Anyways.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just crazy. It's difficult to be on social media right now because it's like a bad game of telephone. It's like it's worse than a bad game of telephone because the initial message is not even a true one, but it just continues to get distorted and like distended and just like it's like a fake news anti-science snowball.
Yeah. Like
And
I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to sit on here and say like, "Oh, you should take the vaccine." But at the same time, I am somebody who listens to experts and they say take the vaccine.
like
So I'm like, maybe read actual studies. Even if you don't believe the news, read studies.
it's like imagine,
but then I guess if you don't believe experts, then studies aren't going to get
people
you there
don't
either.
understand the difference between an actual study, like a publication from a clinical trial or a
And
pharmaceutical
an
company,
opinion article.
and yeah, and something that gets published on Breitbart. They just don't. They don't see the difference, and so they're gonna go, well, here's this study that was released by Pfizer, but Pfizer's big pharma, and I don't trust big pharma. But then there's this opinion article written by an economist, a right-wing economist on Breitbart. So I'm gonna listen to that.
Yeah. Anyways.
It's crazy.
So
Speaking of, I wanted to tell a story.
Yeah.
We're gonna get off that topic.
Yeah.
We're done. But anyways, I could talk. That could be a whole podcast. I love that topic. Just people. But there's, speaking of space lasers, which we did a second ago, there's not very many times in my adult life or anyone's adult life where like you see something that your brain can't comprehend. So this story, we were at my dad's
This
house.
story has been told many times in the past week.
I am just
Literally,
like,
she tells every single person. So
but it was like I was flabbergasted.
you were?
Yeah, we'll get to it. So, I was at, you weren't here yet. I was at we had this big family get together with all of my vaccinated family in North Carolina. It was great. I love hugging people and socializing. And it was at my dad's house. My dad lives in kind of a rural area. So one of the things I love about being out there is that you can see the stars really clearly because there's not a lot of light pollution from the city. And it had been like kind of slowly getting dark, and we had like a fire going, and everybody was just kind of sitting out. And I went inside to use the washroom and came out and saw something that made zero sense to my like adult brain. And what I saw, I looked up and I was like, man, you can see the stars so clearly. And as far as I could see, directly overhead, 90 degrees overhead, was a straight line of stars. Just straight line of white lights, and they were moving across the sky in a straight line. And I was like, okay, logical adult brain, like figure this out. What is this? So I'm staring at it and I'm like, is it the Chinese satellite stuff coming back in? Like, it seems awfully organized for that. Okay, no, it's probably not that. Is it a meteor shower? But like, again, a little too organized to be a meteor, literally in a straight line, evenly spaced, just going. And I was like, no, it's probably not it. And I was like, it's got to be aliens. Like, that's the only thing. So here I am, like, I'm staring at this thing. Like, if this is how I die, at least I'm just gonna be staring at it the whole time. And like, none of my family was paying attention because they're all talking.
Wait, did you actually think that?
I mean, for a second. So I'm like walking around the yard, pointing straight up, like going, what is that? And then all like my whole family does the same things. We're all like staring up, like, oh my God, like, what is this? And finally someone's like, it's Starlink. And I'm like, what the fuck? What is Starlink? And apparently, so Elon Musk, who I don't keep up with because I find him like kind of intolerable, but he's smart, clearly.
He's kind of smart.
He's okay.
So what does he think of the vaccine?
I don't actually know. That would be interesting.
Okay.
So yeah, anyways, he's put up all these satellites, and so that was like they do that. They move across the sky. They're all moving together right now. And so you can actually go on and Starlink tracker and put in your coordinates, and it says this would be a good time to like, where is it going to be in the sky? Is it low visibility, high visibility? And I guess the purpose of them is it's like their communications. So eventually maybe there's going to be some satellite alternative to cell phones. And that's what it is. But I had never heard of this, and it was just really like it was a rare moment where I'm like, I have absolutely no idea what I'm looking at here. But yeah, it was cool. Google it if you've never heard of it. Google Starlink, like, night sky or something, and there's all these YouTube videos of where they're kind of moving across, but it's rare that it's directly overhead, like 90 degrees. So I think that's really I mean, I would have been thrown off regardless, but yeah, it was pretty neat. It was pretty cool. My mind was blown. I felt very simple and small in that moment. But now I've done a ton of reading on Starlink.
So you can have that in the sky, whatever that is. I don't know.
Yeah, you
Pretty
can have like
crazy.
there's satellites who like probably taking pictures of what you're doing all day, but you're not cool with getting a vaccine.
I love that argument. Oh, the government's going to track me. What are you doing that is so important and so secretive in your life?
Like you are
Like, if
not
the
that
government's going to
interested.
waste their time tracking me, like, good on them.
Well, like all these people have cell phones, like they are already tracking you.
Yeah.
I hate to tell you
That's
that.
the thing, is like, now that we're back, we have to quarantine for 14 days and they keep a pretty close eye. Meredith had to download like this certain app. So you answer these questions every day that you're not feeling sick and all that. And they come and like check on you. But I don't know if like they have, so they're basically in your phone now. This app is in your phone.
Yeah.
So like, do they know where your phone is? Like, if you wanted to leave, you should probably leave your phone behind.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I don't
Like,
think
they
that they
already
can.
are there without the vaccine.
Yeah.
They're here. They can easily tap into that.
Yeah, I don't know that like surveillance like that's legal, like I said. They
Yeah,
might
I
be
don't
able to
know.
do it, but they just wouldn't be able to be like, "Yeah, we know you left your house because we can track your phone." Like they can't say that. But they could track your phone and then show
Maybe,
up for a surprise visit while they know you're gone, kind of thing.
yeah.
But oh, Ivy's back.
What's that, Ivy?
She's so cute.
You wish I was back, but not Meredith? I know.
Um anyways, yeah. So we should really get on with this podcast.
Well, I don't know. I was thinking maybe we can just push the nutrition stuff to the next podcast
Yeah, we could
and
actually.
tell our story about the hotel.
All right. Yeah, we'll push that. The next one's good. So
It's going to
just
be awesome.
yeah, and part of it is I've done like we're both kind of into running right now, and not like, oh, we're into running like this new thing. Like we've always run, but we're both going to do some races coming up, and so I've been doing a lot of reading and listening to other people talk about expectations and performance.
Well,
And
and we're
it's
both in this weird spot with CrossFit where it's like we're old, like we're older now. Like we're at the point where it's like improvements aren't really.
you have to fight equally hard to maintain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where, and like, it's not just physical, like age, it's also just time and other life commitments and stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to, there's a lot of comparison going on.
Yeah. And so it's like and so this happened to me maybe about a year ago, and it's happening to you now, where you're just like you got one leg on either side of the fence, and I think you tie up so much of your identity in what you do, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's something that a lot of athletes go through at some point, and you're on one hand you're trying to kind of let it go, but on the other hand you're like, I don't want to let it go because this is who I am, and I don't know what I'm going to do after. I don't know who I am if I'm not doing competitive CrossFit. When really, like, the realization for me came this year when you were doing the open and quarterfinals, and like there was no part of me that wanted to do that. And I actually, like, I'm still doing CrossFit training, or OPT, and I'm enjoying the hell out of it. Like, I feel good. Like, I'm doing way less volume, but I'm enjoying what I am doing, and I'm doing running, and like I haven't been able to enjoy that really until the open rolled around and I wasn't doing it, and it's like, oh, okay, this is like I'm actually getting a break. But yeah, it's kind of, there's a bigger conversation there with like expectations and reference points, and I think it's going to be a cool.
Yeah. And like this also, just like most things, is a common thing that happens with nutrition and weight loss, especially, and just like changing your body, or working towards certain goals, people have expectations to look like so-and-so who's doing the exact same thing that they're doing.
Yeah.
Or they expect to lose weight in 1 week or 2 weeks. And that's just like, you got to like check your expectations.
Yeah.
And partially, like, of course, we're not going to say like, hey, like, don't expect to make any progress. But yeah, like in a week, don't really expect any physical progress.
Yeah.
And as much as, we tell our clients this via text message, and we try to, kindly nudge them into like, just focus on the process. Like, we're changing some things. Like, don't get on the scale. It's not going to matter. It's hard. It's hard when they have this, like, deep seated belief that like, as soon as you change something, you should have instant gratification. And that's just not the case with fitness and nutrition.
I think you have to have like, and this is like kind of the topic is like the longer I do this and the more I read about other sports and like areas, I realize like it's all the same. Like the psychology that exists in sport is the same psychology that exists in life and in weight loss and in health goals. It's all the same. Yep. It's just manifesting in different ways. And so the anxiety that an athlete might feel is the same anxiety that, a normal person might feel. It's just what is causing that is different.
It could be work related, career related.
Yeah, it's all the same.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to be a good talk.
I'm stoked for it.
Yeah, I am too.
But we had to clear up some things before we get clearly.
There was just a big download.
It's just so hard. Yeah, and it's so hard because Meredith and I just, talk ourselves in circles over this stuff. So why not open it up to you guys where you can even respond and we can just,
what we should do?
Tell you what we think and believe in our hearts that you agree completely with us.
We should have a call line that people can call into, or like it would probably be online. So it wouldn't be a call line where they can leave us like voicemails, and then we can bring those voicemails onto the show and then like talk to people's points.
Yeah.
I'm going to look into
Or we can do like Instagram Live, which we've done before.
Yeah, I just like the podcast.
Okay. But back to our story.
I like the podcast because I'm sitting here in like ratty sweatpants. Like this shirt.
No, that shirt is way rattier than those sweatpants.
Yeah. Like I can't go on Instagram Live. I have no makeup on. My hair looks like shit. It looks like I traveled for 16 hours yesterday. Like Instagram Live's a whole thing. You got to like get your face on.
I mean, for some people.
I mean, you just look good all the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so last night.
Was it last night?
No, it was the 2 nights ago. We were in Greensboro, staying with Meredith's sister. Well, we are in High Point, which is very close to Greensboro.
Yeah.
And our flight was at 7 a.m. So the drive from Greensboro to Raleigh, the flight was out of Raleigh, is about an hour or so.
Yeah, and it's usually we fly out of Greensboro and it's fine, but like right now there's just way fewer flights in and out of Canada, so Raleigh was cheaper and faster.
So we decided we're going to stay in a hotel.
Because our flight was like 7 a.m.
Yeah, we were going to stay in a hotel the night before the flight. Just make it easier, and like we weren't going to disturb, the people, like Meredith's sister, and getting up at 4 a.m.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole, like, you should tell the story leading into it.
All right.
It's like, with the gas and everything.
Okay. So when I arrived on Sunday night, we stayed in a hotel in Raleigh. Because, again, we didn't want to drive to Greensboro at, like, 1 a.m.
Yeah. We stayed at Embassy Suites. Pretty nice.
But I have this thing with sleeping where, like, everything needs to be perfectly quiet for me to sleep well. And the bed has to be good. I'm a stomach sleeper. So if the bed sinks or is saggy, I can't sleep because it hurts my back. So not only was the bed a little bit saggy, but there was some sort of like humming, which I could hear through my earplugs, and didn't really sleep particularly well. So when I told Meredith, when we stay in the hotel on the way home, we need to stay in a different hotel. Like I just didn't like that one.
I slept great for whatever it's worth.
So if you're not aware, there was like a big gas shortage.
Why don't you tell us your interpretation of what happened there? What caused the gas shortage?
Okay, so again, I was not keeping up with like the news. Normally I watch in the mornings in Calgary, I watch CTV, which is the local news. I watch that for an hour and a half or 2 hours from 6 to 8 while I'm working. And then from 8 until 11, we watched the American news, like Today Show and stuff. So you get a pretty good like picture of what's going on in Canada and the US. And then like I'll open my like news apps and stuff throughout the day. But I was not watching any news because we just didn't watch TV really.
Which was like kind of nice.
It was a nice break. So all I'm hearing is like there's a gas shortage. The pipelines were the gas like the whatever it's called.
Pipelines.
The pipelines were hacked. And so in my mind I'm like somebody like hacked with like I'm actually picturing
with a tool
with like a jack like whatever like a giant axe like hacking away like very literally hacking away at this like pipeline, causing like a complete break in this pipeline. And I mean, you hear about this stuff happening like with other things. Like this is a thing that happens.
Is it?
Well, I don't know if people hack into it, but like pipelines can have issues.
Physical issues.
Physical issues. So like I didn't realize until like literally, this is actually so embarrassing that I'm telling this story, until Friday when we were like trying to find gas. Cause I was like, Meredith, we should probably fill up with gas at some point when we see a gas station that has gas. Just so that we're not like in a pickle at the end, like getting back to Raleigh on Friday night with a gas issue. Yeah, it'll be fine. Like typical Meredith. Like one of my like greatest fears is running out of gas. That's never happened to me. Probably never will if I'm in control. So on Friday, I'm like, okay, Meredith, so we're trying to find gas on Friday night. Cause we're literally like the gas light is on. I'm getting really nervous. We need to make it from the airport hotel to the airport in the morning. And I'm like, what if we run out of gas?
Yeah. Well, like earlier in the week when you were like, we should get gas. I was like, I mean, I appreciate that sentiment, but there's no gas to get.
There were some spots I saw.
Yeah, I mean, we could drive it, but I also had like over half a tank at that point.
So anyways, I'm like, please explain to me what exactly happened. Like, I'm just going to be shameless here and just ask. And she's like, okay, so like, it was like a technology thing.
Like computer hackers hacked.
Like somebody like hacked the computer system.
It's in the computer. Yeah, and then they held the whole
and I was like, what?
Ransom.
Talk about mind blowing.
Yeah. So they held it ransom.
Oh no, because I heard on the news or on the radio, like they paid the ransom. And I was like, paid the ransom?
Who are they holding hostage? There was a person involved? Jesus. This is some scary gas pirate shit. I was like, oh, okay.
So Meredith explained it to me, and I'm like, all right, I gotta watch the news. Like,
I gotta do some reading.
Basically, I like was living under a rock.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm actually not usually that ignorant, but anyway, so we don't end up getting gas, and I'm like freaking out that we're gonna run out of gas. But then we had enough. So anyways, we're at this hotel, this new hotel, the Hyatt. And we're watching some TV on Meredith's computer before bed. And I hear this, like planes taking off and landing, like immediately above our hotel room. Like it feels very close. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm sure it'll be fine. Like once I get my earplugs in, I'm really tired. And the planes have to stop eventually. I don't think they go all night at this interval, which was basically every 5 to 10 minutes. So we wrapped things up to go to bed. And it was probably like 30 minutes later of these planes. Meredith thinks they were landing. I think they were taking off.
They weren't taking off. There aren't that many late flights out of RDU.
Okay.
There are a bunch of
So they were landing.
Yeah.
So it felt and sounded as if the plane was going to potentially touch the top of the hotel building. That's how loud it was.
Yeah.
So you're trying to fall asleep and like, it was torturous. You were about to fall asleep and then a plane would come.
Yeah.
And so
like
Meredith at one point was like, she just like yelled. She was like, is this a joke? Is this a joke?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't really know. Like, should we just keep trying to fall asleep here? So it was we went to bed at 10. probably around midnight. We were both still awake. And I'm starting to get like angry at this point.
You were angry, yeah. And then like it was also really hot because you turned off the air because the air was loud. So I'm laying on top of the blankets, like clearly not awake. I think my eyes were just open. I was just laying there. And then you were like, well, what are you gonna do? You just gonna like keep trying to go to sleep? And I was like, confused about what the other options are. You were like, well, I mean, like, you're not gonna be able to sleep. And I'm like, well, do you want to watch TV? No. Well, like, I want to know what you want to do.
Well, I thought, okay, so we have 5 hours at this point. Should we try to like move hotels? Because 5 hours is still significant. Like if I'm gonna have to lie here for 5 hours and not sleep.
Wait. You wanted to move hotels on in a car that was basically slapped out of gas.
I wasn't thinking about the car at that point.
We're walking. We're abandoning the vehicle. Yeah, it was wild. And like, I mean, I've stayed in, so the crazy thing is like I've traveled in Minneapolis a lot because Granite Games, and they have a hotel attached to the airport. It's an international, super nice. And I've stayed there a few times and you don't even hear it. But I think it's because you're not there. Like the flight path is not like there aren't planes flying right over the hotel. They're flying adjacent.
Yeah.
And so when I was looking for airport hotels, I found this one, and like the reviews were like literally the first review says nice, quiet location. Like it actually says the word quiet in the first line. And like none of the reviews talk about the airplane noise. And like in one, and I looked after the fact, but I had to scroll way, 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 way down. And it says like, oh, it can be a little noisy. It can, like, depending on the flights. But it's not in, like, that's not in one of the reviews that I read before I booked it. Cause I read reviews when I book hotels. And like you assume like Hyatt, like I don't know what this place was before it was a Hyatt, but that's not a Hyatt built hotel. Like Hyatt bought the hotel. Anyways, it was awful. And
it was awful.
It
was horrible.
It's one of those things that like it actually is so bad that you can't even be mad because you're like, what are you gonna do about it? Like,
I mean, we were still mad.
I wasn't. Yeah,
I was on the first thing I think I said to you when we got up at 5. Because we ended up falling asleep around like probably 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So we slept for a few hours.
Yeah.
And I think the first thing I said to you after we got up at 5, and it was like 5:15 after we were done like brushing our teeth and packing up. I was like, what do you even do here? Can we ask for a refund? Like you pay for a hotel to sleep, and there's something that is clearly preventing that from happening.
Like that hotel should have a disclaimer on it.
It really should. And then when we went out to the car to put our stuff in and leave for the airport, there was a plane flying. So we got to see how close it actually was. And I think it was like 30 feet from the hotel.
Alex, it wasn't 30. Like, look, the height of this house is like 40 feet. Do you think
okay,
the plane
50
was 40?
feet. It was 50 feet.
It was probably like 300 feet.
No, it was much closer.
Planes are huge. It's not... If a plane is 40
clipped,
feet
at
over,
one point, I think it clipped the hotel.
Did it hit a tree?
One of the wheels touched down on the top of the hotel.
Okay. Yeah,
it was close. My eyeballs. I seen it.
Your calibrated eyes for measuring distance.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was close. It was closer than you want a plane to be to where you're sleeping. That is for sure.
And I'm not saying it probably was worse or better because the plane was close to the building no matter what. But being on the top floor certainly wouldn't help.
Yeah.
Which we were. So there was that. Anyways, we made it.
Yeah. It's all good. I felt bad. Yesterday we got an Uber from the Glacier Airport in Montana to the British Columbia border, which was like an hour and 20 minutes. And the guy was super nice, and I think you had said something about, Ubers can just come and go. Like, because that's what it said, maybe for Toronto. I don't know. So the guy, we're driving...
any transport vehicle, like taxi, Uber.
Yeah, so we're driving up to the border, and he's like, he hasn't done that drive before, and he's like, well, I don't know, like, where to go. I was like, I think you can just turn around. You can just drive right up. But you can't just drive right up. You have to, if you like make it to that point, you have to be processed, and like you're coming into Canada even if you're making a U-turn.
Well,
So I
the
felt
border is before the border control building where
yeah,
they stop
'cause
you.
there's like
It's like
that
how does
gray
that make
area.
any sense?
Well, it has to be because like you have to drive in. Like there's the Canadian, like there's the Canadian border control, and then there's the U.S. And so there's like kind of this in between area. So
So
you
why
cross.
does that have to be?
I don't
He's like,
know.
you're in Canada already.
The guy, we just felt like it was being a prick. I think he thought we didn't know what we were doing. And then once he figured out we did know what we were doing, we had literally everything that we needed to have.
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, okay, you guys are good." But you have to have, like, you have to book a negative, like, you have to have a negative COVID test within 72 hours of showing up. You have to have the app. You have to have all your information in. Like, we had everything. And then I realized why he was so grumpy, and it's because we were standing outside waiting for your parents to get there. And this woman pulls up in like a blue Mustang with Texas plates. And I could just hear her talking, and she was talking like she was from Texas. And like,
Nothing against Texans.
Nothing against I mean, yeah, I mean, we live in Alberta. You can't throw that much shade at Texas right now.
There's always people in every state.
Yeah. That was very politically correct. I think that I am guilty of making generalizations about people from Texas. So, sorry. She was a lady in a blue Mustang from some state.
You're just painting the picture.
Yeah, I am. She had big hair too. And like a glitter heart hanging from her mirror.
Did she actually?
No. But if she did, I would not have been surprised. Yeah, for sure. So
was she wearing a pink cowboy hat?
You know what? She was. Yeah, she was. Yeah, and big, like bright red lipstick, and like a blue sequin denim jacket with like a really obnoxious push-up bra that was sticking up above the top of her white tank top, and like a big old cross necklace.
Was she heading to the Calgary Stampede?
Yeah, she
wanted to get there early.
She
heard the announcement that it was going on.
Yeah,
and she wanted to get there early, make sure she could get into Canada and get all set up before.
Yeah. So that's this lady. She's probably a nice lady, nice Christian lady. And she you could hear the border control guy, and he was like, "Well, do you have your negative COVID test?" And she's like, "What? What? What do you mean I need a negative COVID test?" Something like that. And he's like, "Yeah, you got to have a negative test within the last 72 hours." He's like, "Okay. Well, have you downloaded the Arrive Canada app?" And she's like, "What's that?" Like, just had none of it.
She did have a pretty strong accent.
Yeah. I was surprised she was all the way up in Montana.
And then the one thing I heard was, well, what if I want to drive to Alaska?
Yeah.
I have a horrible Texas
accent. That was pretty good.
Oh, okay, thanks.
I mean, that was in Texas. That was like general Southern.
Okay.
That's what I'm doing too. Okay. Yeah, and he's like, "Well, you can't drive to Alaska. Like, there's no tourism in Alaska right now. It's pretty much shut down." And I love how she was asking that as if the drive to Alaska from the Montana border is even like a feasible drive. That is a long drive. You're not even like from Texas to Alaska. You're not even halfway at that point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, from Texas. Why was she in Montana, do you think?
I kept trying to figure that out, and I couldn't. I think maybe she was actually a dual citizen. But
I don't.
Yeah.
Anyways, so the guy was in a bad mood when we pulled up,
but less of a bad mood when we had literally everything that he asked for. But
it's crazy how much money they're pouring into this operation of people traveling back into Canada with the quarantine and the testing. Like, so we have to do a test on day 1, so today, and like Pearl later comes to pick it up. Like, it's a legitimate test. It's not just like
you had to sit on a FaceTime like with a nurse.
Yeah, like an actual person.
Swab your nose.
And then you have to do another one on day 8. And if you're positive on day 8, then your quarantine starts over again.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough, but like, then why are you doing a test on day 1 if your quarantine isn't going to ever end?
Yes.
It doesn't, to me, that doesn't make sense. I'm sure there's some reason. I don't know what it is, but it just seems like an awful lot of effort. And apparently they come and like call you and drive by your house every single day to make sure you're still here.
But like,
That's a lot of like taxpayers' money.
And the positivity rate with international travelers right now is like less than 1%,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
Meanwhile, there's community transmission happening everywhere at gyms, stores, homes, restaurants.
There are people
everywhere.
who are actually testing positive for COVID and like going out for a drive or going out rollerblading. And it's like they're doing nothing to make sure that those people who are actually 100% definitely positive are staying in their house. But us, like the fully vaccinated
who've already had 2 negative COVID tests, are in their house.
And
who are vaccinated. Yeah.
It's crazy. It's
and who have come from a country that has fewer cases.
Yeah, like the U.S. should be concerned about Canadians right now.
Yeah, but anyways.
Yeah, it's so inappropriately thorough. Like, on one hand, I'm like, okay,
It would actually be fine if the thoroughness was matched with the thoroughness that is actually happening in the country.
Yeah, if they were just being thorough across the board.
Yeah,
but they're not.
But there's such a major discrepancy that's confusing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyways. All right. Well, that's kind of it. That's our update. Mm-hmm. So I think this is good.
We'll get back onto a more
regular schedule.
But we're going to try to get another one out in the next day or so on nutrition.
Yeah.
Because it's been a while since we've actually talked about that stuff.
And we have tons of time because we're in COVID jail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not that we do anything anyways, but we'll be here. Just the 3 of us. Just you, me, and Ivy. She's like dead asleep. I love cats because they can go from like, running around wide open, and then 10 seconds later they're like slumbering.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could do that. I mean, I kind of can sometimes. But.
Well, talk soon.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Bye.